Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our closing keynote. We'll be getting started in just a couple of minutes to give everybody a chance to file in. Thank you all so much for attending. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Kristen and stop my screen share. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our closing session of the Goalmakers National Forum. This session will feature a special guest named Chirag, who lives in Bihar in India and was forced into child labor at a young age. Chirag is joined by Owen James, who is the global director at the 100 Million campaign of the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation. Owen will tell you much more about Chirag's story and introduce Chirag. This story is a story of survival and inspiration. It gives me hope and reminds me of why I dedicate my time and energy to global issues. I'm honored to have both Chirag and Owen featured here today. Owen, can you join me now for your remarks?
Hi, thank you, Kristen, and thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to join you for this closing of the 2020 National Forum of Global Washington. You're an important group, not just within the United States, but globally. The innovation, the data-driven approach, the focus and passion of the speakers we've heard just now and across the forum, it's exactly what we need to address the challenge we face. And by challenge, I mean the extreme poverty and inequality that is starting to define our time. The extreme poverty and inequality that meant this morning 152 million children around the world did not go to school to learn, but worked all day in order to survive. If we want to change it, we need to ask ourselves why this is happening. So I'd like to start by addressing some key questions. And the first question to consider is, does it matter? What is the impact of being a child laborer? Well, to answer that, I'd like you all to think of a girl that you know. It could be your daughter, a niece, a family friend, anyone you know. Well, now imagine how different that girl's life would be if she'd never been to school. If she didn't know how to read or write, what would happen to her as she grew up? The impact would be huge. Her life chances, her whole future would be different. Working so young also affects children's health, particularly for those in the worst forms of child labor. We know that when a girl misses school, it even affects the health of any future children she has. A child whose mother can read is 50% more likely to live past the age of 5. Quite simply, keeping a young girl or boy out of child labor and in school is crucial to their whole life. So it matters to the individual. But what about for the country? Well, one of the most frustrating things is that countries and communities are much better off when they eliminate child labor and all of their children are in school. Just 1 year of school can increase a woman's future earnings by up to 20%. And investing in every child in a country is one of the best ways to increase a country's GDP. Countries like South Korea used to have one of the lowest GDPs in the world, but eliminating child labor and achieving universal education drove economic growth, and they're now in the G20 group of economies. Okay, so it matters, but is it really a big problem? Well, the scale is appalling. I mentioned the 152 million children who are working in child labor earlier. To put that number in context, that's more children than all of the school-aged children in the United States and all of the school-aged children in Europe too. You can even add Canada and Russia as well. In Africa alone, there are 42 million children under the age of 11 who are working. More than 13 million of them are working in the most hazardous forms. Around the world today, millions and millions of children are working, many in slave-like conditions. They're growing the crops we eat, the coffee we drink, they mine the minerals that go into our mobile phones, and the glitter that goes into our makeup. They are becoming an underclass, supporting our lifestyles whilst their rights are violated. Now, the challenges of the Sustainable Development Goal is to leave no one behind. While measuring the millions of child labor is an effective indicator of how many are being left behind. And it is a challenge that we're failing. So, okay, we accept if it's a huge problem, but there is another question. Is it a problem we can solve? Can we do it? Can we afford it? Well, we know what works. We know the policies that are proven to eliminate the extreme poverty that drives child labor. Schemes like Bolsa Familia in Brazil made a difference immediately. In Bangladesh, tremendous progress has been made through a stipend for the mothers of all families that send their girls to school. There is a long way to go, but Bangladesh achieved gender parity in primary education a few years ago, and are now pushing for it in lower secondary education. Unthinkable for nearby countries like Pakistan. Closer to home, approaches like the New Deal in the United States and the rollout of welfare in Europe made a tremendous difference in our own countries to child labor. We know the policies that work, and it's also clear that we have the resources. The world is richer than ever before. In the last 20 years, the annual wealth of the world has increased by $30 trillion. Yet 1 in 10 children are still so poor and hungry that they're working in fields, factories, mines, and homes just in order to survive. And that's been made worse this year. In recent months, over $8 trillion have been announced by governments to protect businesses and people during the COVID pandemic. Welcome news, but virtually nothing went to those who needed help the most, just 0.13% of that. Single industries have received more support than all of the low-income countries in the world put together. This year, humanity has faced a common enemy like never before, and our response has been to protect the rich and to leave the very poorest to fend for themselves. It is a mark of shame against our leaders and our generation. If just 1 trillion of that 8 trillion had been committed to the most marginalized instead, it would have made a transformative difference. It would have canceled low-income country debt, paid for the health, education, water, and sanitation SDG goals, and it would have saved over 70 million lives. Instead, we've actually seen global aid cut to the poorest countries in the middle of a pandemic, and 1 million more children under 5 are estimated to have died this year. We have the resources. The issue is how unequally those resources are being allocated. And child labor is not just because of an exploitation by unscrupulous child traffickers, though that is a big problem. It's because of multidimensional poverty that leaves people so poor they can't afford enough food unless their children work. This poverty is caused by systemic discrimination against certain communities, both within and between countries. And it is the same children denied an education who are trapped in child labor, who don't have access to water and sanitation, and who are going hungry. So whatever issue we work on, to succeed, we have to come together and we have to tackle the discrimination and the intergenerational injustice faced by these communities. We need to see a fair share of budgets, a fair share of laws, and a fair share of protection for every child. Ultimately, there were already schemes to support children. There were already laws in place to protect children from child labor and ensure that they're in school. It's just that they are not available to the children that need them the most. But if you can break this cycle, you can break it forever. Children are far less likely to be in child labor if their parents completed school. Literate mothers do not bring up illiterate children. It just doesn't happen. Sometimes it can happen with dads, but if the mother is literate, the children are not illiterate. When every girl gets an education in the world, we will bring an end to illiteracy. We can be that generation that breaks this cycle of exclusion. So there's one more question though that we need to answer. But first, we're going to hear from an amazing and an inspiring individual, Chirag. He was rescued by Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi, who I have the honor to work for. And it's in the middle of the night in India now. So he recorded this message yesterday for you all.
मेरा नाम चिराग है और जब मैं 9 साल का था तब मुझे मेरे घर से दलाल बहला फुसला करके दिल्ली लेके आ गए थे और दिल्ली में मुझे चूड़ी बनाने वाली फैक्ट्री में रखा था। वो चूड़ी जो महिलाएं पहनती है ऐसे चूड़ी को मैं वहाँ पे बनाता था और एक ही छोटा सा रूम था और उसमें बहुत सारे बच्चे रहते थे फैक्ट्री में और उसी में काम करता था, उसी में खाना और बाथरूम संबंधित चीज़ें था तो काफ़ी तकलीफ़ होता था और कई बार मैं जो है बीमार पड़ जाता था और कई बार रात को 15-16 घंटे तक काम करता था तो रात में भी काम करना पड़ता था तो रात में कई बार नींद आ जाती थी तो कई बार मुझे मालिक मारते थे, कई बार गाली देते थे, काफ़ी परेशानी होता था। मुझे लगता था कि मेरा जीवन जो है ऐसे ही चलेगा, लेकिन मुझे एक दिन ऐसा भी हुआ कि मुझे वहाँ से बचपन बचाओ आंदोलन के कार्यकर्ता दोबारा छुड़ाया गया और उसके बाद मुझे बाल आश्रम में लाकर रखा गया और बाल आश्रम में मैं तब से रह रहा हूँ और पढ़ाई कर रहा हूँ। अभी 12वीं पास किया है मैंने और आगे के पढ़ाई के लिए मैं बिजनेस में पढ़ाई करना चाहता हूँ। मैं बहुत खुश हूँ, यहाँ पे मैं दोस्त बना सकता हूँ, यहाँ पे मैं दूसरे से बात कर सकता हूँ, गाना गा सकता हूँ, खेल सकता हूँ, कूद सकता हूँ, पढ़ सकता हूँ। पर उस समय जो 1 साल मैंने वहाँ पे रहा, वहाँ पे मुझे ना तो आज़ादी मिल रही थी, ना कोई खेल, ना कूद, ना कोई दोस्त, ना किसी से बात कर सकता था। लेकिन अब मैं जो है सब कुछ कर पा रहा हूँ। लेकिन आज भी मैं ऐसा देख रहा हूँ कि सड़कों में, ढाबा में, होटल में या फैक्ट्री में आज भी बच्चे जो है बहुत मात्रा में काम कर रहे हैं और बाल श्रम के जो है शिकार हो रहे हैं और कई बार ट्रैफिकर के शिकार हो रहे हैं, अपना बचपन जो है ख़राब कर रहे हैं। और आजकल तो कोरोना का दौर चल रहा है, तो कोरोना में तो आज के कई के स्कूल बंद हो गए हैं या किसी के घर में रोज़गार नहीं है, इसीलिए जो है मालिक इसका फ़ायदा उठा करके जो है बच्चों को अपने फैक्ट्री में ले जाएँगे और ज़्यादा मात्रा में जो है बाल मज़दूरी करवाएँगे और ज़्यादा जो है उनका जो है व्यापार करेंगे, तो इससे जो है काफ़ी जो है बच्चों को जो है नुकसान होने वाला है। तो ऐसे में ऐसा स्थिति को देख कर के मुझे 11 साल पहले जब ऐसा स्थिति था और अब आज भी ऐसा स्थिति लग रहा है, तो मुझे कोई फ़र्क ही नहीं नज़र आ रहा है। लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि ये स्थिति अगर ऐसा ही चलता रहेगा तो आखिर ये दुनिया जो है धीरे-धीरे गरीब हो जाएगी। तो ऐसे स्थिति को समाप्त करने के लिए मैं चाहता हूँ कि देश के या दुनिया के जितने भी बड़े लोग हैं, बड़े नेता हैं, वो जो है आगे आए और एक साथ जो है बाल मज़दूरी का जो ये कुकर्म है इसको जो है जड़ से समाप्त करें।
Well, hearing from Chirag, it gives you such hope. It shows how easily the cycle of poverty can be broken. He's now applying to university. To see the change in the individual is uplifting. But what happened to him was a tragedy. Working 15 to 16 hours a day at the age of 9, beaten if he fell asleep, trafficked. We have to remember, for the vast, vast majority of child laborers, no one rescues them. They lose their childhood, and they lose their future. Chirag's demand for justice for all of those still in child labor is both clear and compelling. Child labor would not happen if the 1 in 10 children had their fair share of the budgets and services that other children receive. It would not happen if they had their fair share of the laws that protect other children. It would not happen if we paid attention to their lives and the injustices that they face. We now spend 10 billion hours a day online reading and sharing experiences, but the 1 in 10 children have no access to share their stories. 5 billion videos are watched on YouTube every day, but how many of them show the lives of the 10% of children trapped in child labor? The 1 in 10 children, they're not our friends on our social media accounts. They rarely appear on the news or the videos that we choose to watch. We have had a global revolution in communications, but those 1 in 10 children, many of them working as little more than slaves around the world, they are more hidden than ever. They're becoming an underclass whose needs are ignored by decision makers around the world. When you hear the testimony of survivors like Chirag, or any of the survivors that you work with in your organizations, we all hear a truth that only they can share. I don't believe we will act with the urgency or on the policies required until we are survivor-led. I don't do these events very often. If it wasn't midnight in India already, Chirag or another survivor would be talking to you for the whole of this session. But I would like to mention the responsibility of those of us who are more privileged to pass the mic to survivors whenever we can. And as I mentioned, there's one more key question to address. We know this matters. We know we have the know-how and the resources to end it. The issue is that we, or our decision makers at least, are choosing to let this happen. So the ultimate question we have to answer is, how do we get decision makers to act? And that ultimately comes down to us. Can enough of us come together? Because if enough of people unite, if enough organizations push for this, we can see lasting change. And there is a growing campaign led by young people that brings together privileged and marginalized young people from across the world called the 100 Million Campaign. Survivors like Chirag started the campaign in India with Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi. And in just a few short years, it has built up the support of youth organizations and of representative student movements from across the world. Organizations representing over 50 million young people are now involved. They came up with a call for a fair share during the COVID pandemic. And now they're a leading part of a huge alliance of organizations that is pushing for survivors to take center stage in 2021. Because next year is the UN year for the elimination of child labor. We cannot let this be the year where we see the first increase in child labor in decades. The exploitation of millions of our children has gone on for too long, and next year we have a chance to change this. So civil society are coming together with youth activists, trade unions, Nobel laureates, UN agencies, business leaders, faith leaders, all uniting to put child labor and child labor center stage. Every parliament in the world will be challenged to hold a special session to eradicating child labor in honor of the UN year, to open their doors to survivors and implement the policies that we know will work. We plan to support as many survivors as possible, as many of the 1 in 10 children who've been hidden for so long, to share their testimonies to parliamentarians, to local officials and decision makers across faith groups and campuses all over the world next year. If you're being interested in part of this one-off push, please do let us know. We need support from those organizations interested in promoting testimony from survivors like Chirag across all schools, colleges, and faith communities in the United States and over the world. We need individuals who can help organize and take the lead in these events. Regardless of whether you want to work with us or not, though, please keep doing what you're doing. And please make sure, alongside whatever help you give your beneficiaries, you're also asking those questions about why they're in that situation that they're in, and see if you can get behind and support their efforts for justice and their fair share. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen, and thank you, Chirag, for sharing your story. It's truly inspirational and a powerful call to action for all of us. As Owen said, really imagine if every child forced into labor became a survivor like Chirag. Imagine if we got back on track to protect children around the world from all harm. Imagine if more people around the world joined the efforts to advance the SDGs, to leave no one behind. Imagine if we can take this moment of disruption over the past 9 months and transform our systems and programs in global development to something more equitable and sustainable for years to come. Over the past 2 days, you all have heard from over 50 speakers, joined over 300 people on a virtual platform who care about improving lives in low and middle income countries. I'm going to do a brief summary, but I'm really excited to say that we've recorded all these sessions. It's the power of having a virtual event. And you can go back into Whova over the next 12 months and watch videos and recordings of sessions that you missed. We'll make this all available to those that have registered for the forum. We're starting to download the videos now, so you can watch them as soon as they're all up. So yesterday, as a reminder, we heard from Zia Khan at the Rockefeller Foundation, who provided the framework for the SDGs and how it can be implemented in a 17 rooms model to mobilize people to action. I encourage all of you to get involved in some type of 17 rooms model. Get engaged in your issue. Do a deep dive as it relates to the SDGs. The SDGs provide you all the documentation of framework to look at the targets, to the goals, and become part of a global movement. Then we heard from Blessing Amaku, who then challenged us to decolonize global development, change the power imbalances that exist today, work towards equity with very concrete examples. Blessing's call to action must be remembered as we transition into 2021, or we have failed this moment of opportunity that we have been given with this COVID crisis. You've heard from multi-sector leaders describing the foundational aspects of the SDGs that cut across all the goals and how to be really holistic in your mindset as you approach these issues. Go into those 17 rooms, do a deep dive, and then mix up the rooms. Reach out to others in other disciplines, learn from each other. We also heard from leaders who worked in the US government or currently work in the US government, talk about the presidential transition in the United States and what that might mean for the US role in the world. If your nonprofit doesn't get money from USAID or any government assistance, you will still be impacted by the role of the US leadership around the world. This will be an important transition for us, and it was great to hear from leaders yesterday to give some advice as we make this transition. You also heard from Laurel Patterson from the UNDP and the new research coming out that we can all leverage, all take the material from the UN and make it real within our work every day. Look at the SDGs and what it has to offer for future engagement. Check out the Laurel's work in UNDP as you go forward into the next year. Yesterday, we also heard from travel writer Rick Steves, an unlikely voice, but who really challenged us to sharpen our communication skills and get people outside our circles to support global issues in a really communicative and a compelling way. Today, you heard from Kate Benkin, the head of Microsoft Philanthropies, really talking about the value of partnering, bringing different assets to the table. And her real opinion that in order to go far, you must have partnership with government, NGOs, corporation, and academia. You also heard from a panel that Akhtar led with Will Poole and our 2020 global hero, Tazeen Shadid. They also emphasized that you need to move from a growth mindset to a purpose mindset. It's not an either or. You can focus on their strengths and build from there. Focus on impact. Will reminded us not to let a good crisis go to waste. Take advantage of this opportunity and look how we can leapfrog into new solutions. Look at the rapid adoption of digital technologies that we're all forced into right now and take advantage of those opportunities. We're adopting new ways to connect digitally like never before. And if you have any doubt, just hear from Tazeen Shadid, looking at how he found purpose in his life and his commitment and selflessness in his work. I know that resonates with everyone, and all of you are taking a moment of that message and incorporating into your work as well. We also heard about the power of bridging networks. That's the only way that we can really amplify this work, is to work together. More recently, you heard from young professionals. And I love the quotes they said, that they're rebels with a cause now, the next generation coming on for global development. And that it's really a no more excuses attitude that's creating a faster urgency for our work. Nikhil talked about in India, this is the first time ever that there's a unity in the next generation, in part fueled by the 4G connectivity. We also heard from Laura, who talked about really thinking about relationships rather than partnerships, especially when there's a power dynamic. Create those relationships and be in it for the long haul. We were also inspired by Jasmine and her entrepreneur spirit, and really challenged us all to think differently, create new projects that might be virtual for now, but could be extremely powerful as we move forward. And just now you heard from Owen James and Chirag, who overcame incredible obstacles. If this isn't a call to action, I don't know what is. This inspires all of us to continue the fight and leave no one behind. Over the past 2 days, you all got the opportunity to engage more in the cross-cutting themes that cut across all of the SDGs, concepts that include ensuring a just recovery, natural capital and sustainability, disruption and leapfrogging to a better future, feminist leadership, effective partnership in social capital, and the power of movement building. So we've heard from UN officials, foundation leaders, NGO and corporate leaders, as well as a global hero from Bangladesh. You all here today can be the goal makers to advance the SDGs in the work that you're doing. I hope that you found potential partners over the past few days and insights that will really advance your work, and something that inspired you. This is hard work. We need to all work together and inspire each other. While we're coming at the close of our live streaming presentation, I hope you will continue to engage in the Whova platform. As I said, this will be available for the next 12 months. And also for the next 30 minutes, I really encourage you to visit the exhibit hall, view the documentaries, the trailers that we have posted in the SDG multimedia session that were featured yesterday, and continue the conversations through our community boards. Before we go also, I want to thank my Global Washington board and staff for all the work that went into this to make this event possible. I'd also like to thank our forum host committee and the network of partners that we've helped build the Goalmakers 17 Rooms initiative, really taking off in the United States and expanding globally. I encourage you to find these partners, continue the conversations. Our Goalmakers initiative, based in the United States right now, will continue to have public events throughout the year. Please follow the links that are posted in the chat and continue the conversations. With that, I wish you all a healthy, peaceful, and promising 2021. Thank you for attending the 2020 Goalmakers National Forum, and thank you for all the work that you do in the world. Take care.
Thanks to all of our speakers for sharing their expertise with us today. And thanks to you for attending the 2020 Goalmakers National Forum. We have one more event for you to close out your day, a networking session to reflect on the lessons you've learned, review videos from our multimedia session, and to connect with others in the Whova community boards. Please take the next half hour to explore your Whova agenda and community spaces. Thank you so much for attending, and have a great rest of your day.